It's time to focus on seniors with Helping Seniors TV. The television show designed to make you aware of senior issues and needs, as well as to acquaint you with the resources available to help you age in place and with dignity. Now, here's your host, Joe Steckler.
I'm Joe Steckler, and welcome to Helping Seniors, the television arm of Helping Seniors of Brevard County. Our show is designed to provide you with information on how to develop your own aging and care plans. Our topic today is controlling the cost of prescription medications. Joining me is Joe Pons of Canadian Meds of Melbourne, a great resource on cost-effective medications for seniors. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you, Joe.
Remember, you got to talk now. I have to tell you, folks, Joe and I did a radio show several weeks ago, and I knew when I did the radio show I wanted him to be on a television show. And I have to tell you, he's not a nose guard for the Green Bay Packers. He's not that at all. He sells prescription medications. But I have to ask Joe, I said, did you play football? And he said, yes, he did. He was a tackle. And but it's interesting, and we talked, we could always find something to communicate about, Joe.
That's right.
I think that's so important. And I was extremely impressed with your grasp of the need for seniors and those that care for seniors to have a better idea on how to obtain prescription medications.
That's right.
Yeah. We hear so many stories about breaking pills in half or skipping doses because they can't pay for them. But I think that over the course of our show today, you'll be able to show people there are better ways to approach medications. First of all, my question is, why do you think it's so important that seniors and those that care for seniors have a better appreciation of what you and I are going to talk about today?
Simply a matter of wellness. When a client of ours and their doctor team up to keep a person well, it's extremely important that when that doctor prescribes a medication, the patient takes the medication. And out of all the reasons why a person does not take it, finance should not be a reason.
I agree, 100%. But, we're going to talk about what Canadian Meds does, but even if people couldn't afford you, you can still point them in a direction where there are many times free medications available. And in your job, your business, you have to sell prescription drugs in order to pay your own bills and pay yourself and pay your staff and pay employees.
Right.
That's a good type of capitalism, I think. But I think it's even more beneficial because Canadian Meds, with what I know about your company, are able to provide prescription medications at a very cost-effective price compared to what many of the charges are. And we will talk about that today.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
But how did you get started with Canadian Meds? What is your background that led you to being involved in prescription? And I have to tell you, when you walked through that radio room door that day, I had a complete different impression of what the guy that was going to be talking about prescribing drugs, because I've worked with drug reps before. None of them fit the bill that you portrayed.
That's it. And I understand that. And everybody calls me Little Joe.
Little Joe.
Yes, sir. My start was simply a matter from the heart. A couple of years ago, I myself was hospitalized.
Okay.
And because I'm a veteran, the VA was going to take care of the medical bills. I was sent to a civilian hospital, so all I had to do was collect all the bills. And the young lady who took care of the medicine bills basically almost wanted to fight me because she simply said, nobody ever pays this bill. That struck home with me. Why is it that this medicine bill is not paid? Well, to look at the details of the medicine, the cost was enormous. I had to sit down and think, if I did not have my status as a veteran, how could I, a regular person on the street, be able to afford this bill? Well, a friend of the family who started the original Canadian Meds over 13 years ago, I went directly to his office and I said, look, how can I help? Long story short, 2.5 years ago, I came back to Melbourne and started this business. The fact is that there's a problem. And whether it be anyone from 15 to 50 to 85 to 150, there's a need to not spend your hard-earned money just giving it away on prescription medications. And that's what we do. We help out.
So how does Canadian Meds approach the problem of making affordable drugs available to seniors on fixed incomes? How do you do that?
What we do is we simply compare what a person is paying now versus what we have available. How we do that is simply this. We use our pharmacy in Canada. Licensed pharmacists shop the world. We buy them either directly from the drug company or from the next supplier. We compare those prices and allow the individual to make up their own mind, comparing apples to apples, if you would. So that way we can see whether they're on a drug plan, whether they're underinsured or uninsured, to make sure that either if they're covered and they're saving money already, great, fine. Now they're assured that they're okay. If they're not, now they have an alternative. Now they've got an option.
I've got a whole list of questions that you provided me with, talking about frequently asked questions. But before I even get into that, you pointed out something that I think that I had a question in my own mind, and I know other people have said it to me. If you purchase drugs at other than a U.S. pharmacy, how do you ensure that you're getting the actual, like let's say if somebody ordered Lyrica or other drugs that are very popular in the United States, if they order them through your company, how do you ensure that it's the actual product that's advertised? How do you do that?
Absolutely.
Because I think that's a question people would ask.
Absolutely. It's one of our most frequently asked questions.
Oh, it is? Okay.
It is. And that's why what we do is we deal strictly with our pharmacy. We're dealing with licensed pharmacists. And that's the big difference. And that's why I cannot emphasize enough to any individual, regardless of whether or not they deal with us or not, if they choose to deal with any entity, make sure that you're dealing with a licensed pharmacist before you purchase any medication. That's the most important part. That's where you're going to be making sure that what you are taking is the actual medication.
Well, I think that's where you get a question that we talked about on the radio, had to do with mail order pharmacy and online pharmacy.
Correct.
And what you just said, it's either online or which is the good and which is the bad? Or which is the best?
Which is the best? Which is the best? For us, definitely mail order. And that's simply because people can come and see and touch me. If they need to, they can put their hands around my neck if something goes wrong.
I wouldn't want to try it. Too big.
Well, the fact of the matter is that they can be assured that we are real. If there's something that they need, if there's a question, they can pick up the phone and talk to me directly. The problem of dealing with anything online is that anyone can put a website up. And the fact is that there are scam artists out there. Now, don't get me wrong. There are perfectly legitimate online pharmacies where you can save money. I'm not saying that everyone out there is. The problem is how do you tell the difference?
Exactly. How do you tell the difference? You can't.
I don't know. And that's what I have to warn people, is that you need to know who you're dealing with. Before you do anything else, don't throw your money away. And that's why, whether you're dealing with us or you're dealing with someone else, you need to be careful. And that's why we're here. We're here locally.
As much as you and I will talk about it, Joe, the fact that seniors and those that live alone look for companionship, they look for friends, somebody they can trust. I'm reminded of an old scam that's resurfacing itself, and this is the one where a florist will call a house and say, we have a floral delivery, will you be home such and such time? They set the stage for them to come. They come to the house, and this happened to a couple that we knew, and the guy was going to give them a tip, and he was pulling some money out of his wallet, and the florist, the delivery person, said, no, since there's alcohol in there, we have to have proof of delivery, so we need a credit card. And the people let them swipe their credit card, and before they got to stop, they had $4,000 in charges racked up. So I say to our viewers, purchasing medications from other than a source that you know and you can trust is as foolish as letting somebody have access to your credit card. Did you see it that way, Joe?
Absolutely. And that's one of the things, that's one of the options that we provide. We don't just take credit card, we take Visa, of course, but we also take personal check and we take cashier's check. Because the fact is, we understand that even dealing with a real, live, honest-to-goodness person, there are scam artists out there. There are people who are looking to take your hard-earned money. We don't want to put anyone in any position where they feel uncomfortable.
Yep. And if you got a $1,000 medication and somebody substitutes a worthless pill, it's terrible.
Well,
You're not
absolutely.
getting the medication you need. So I think Canadian Meds is an honest, viable alternative to shopping at a pharmacy. And for illustrative purposes, how about drawing a parallel for our viewers on pick a medication that I could purchase at a drugstore and one that you might sell, and by virtue of the fact that you have the shopping powers that you go all over the world to find these drugs, show our viewers some of the differences and why what you do is so important.
Okay, let's see. Something that everyone knows about this little blue pill.
The blue or the purple?
Well, the purple pill. Let's talk about the purple pill.
Let's use the
Let's
purple
do the purple. Everybody knows the little purple pill.
Okay.
Purple pill's got little gold bands around it.
Nexium?
Nexium. Everybody knows that pill. And it's patented here. Name brand. Perfectly legitimate product. It's good for everybody. The fact of the matter is it's pretty expensive.
Yes.
Hands down, we offer it at a lower price. What people also do not know is that we also have the generic Nexium product. Now, the difference between the two is very simple. It's going to have a different size, shape, and color because Nexium, that purple pill, its presentation
It's patented.
is patented. Exactly. Patent law protects it. So there is no way, shape, or form that it can be presented in that form. However, the medicine itself, the chemical compound that makes it work in the same strength and concentration is in the generic form. The difference would be the inactive ingredients. That pill is available at a substantially lower price. That's one of the options that we provide for seniors.
Can you explain to our viewers? Yeah, well, in explaining, I'll set myself here. I was always given to understand that the generic medication didn't contain the same ingredients that the patented medication contained, and that's why doctors prescribed well, let's say, a pill that they want to use, and they didn't want a generic substitute. But you're saying that the generic and the patent pill have the same medications,
Correct.
same ingredients.
Yes. The difference would be the inactive ingredients. And that's where an individual, and we're all different, we all have different body chemistries. For example, I'll have different clients who have different body chemistries who, for example, one client cannot take a generic. Their body chemistry simply cannot tolerate it. The generic form of a pill doesn't work. It may be because simply that there's the inactive ingredients they're allergic to. So they have to take the brand name medication. Likewise, there are people who don't have a tolerance for the actual brand name medication because the inactive ingredients upset their stomach or they have an allergic reaction. It doesn't work for them. However, the actual medication itself is in the generic, and they can take the generic
They can take a generic?
Exactly.
Well, how do you know when to take what, Joe? How do you know that? Can Canadian Meds help people decide which to take?
Well, what we can do is we can provide them with a choice. Ultimately, it's between the patient and the doctor. And that's what we try to get people to understand, is that communication between the doctor and the patient is absolutely paramount. You know, we offer an alternative between big box stores and saving money, but the fact is that we don't provide any medical advice. We're helping you to save money, but we want you to be well. And this first step in that is communicating with your doctor.
Do you, and this is, we did not discuss this on our radio show, but would it be your opinion, and if I can't ask it, you don't have to answer it, but do you think that most doctors are aware of the fact that some people can take generics and not patented, or take patented and not generics? Is that something that ever gets discussed? Or how would a patient know to ask a doctor that?
You know, that's a good question. I honestly believe that most doctors will allow patients to choose the generic form. And the reason why I say that is because in the presentation of a prescription, there's more often than not a little checkbox or a line. There's something on that prescription where it is definitely specified whether or not a patient is required by the doctor to take the brand name only. More often than not, that is not checked or signed off on. So the patient can take the generic form of the medication.
Yep. You know, another question that pops to mind is, it would be my opinion that most people don't read the fine print on that big sheet that comes with your drugs. They don't read it. But I do read it. Even though it's difficult with my eyesight, it's hard to read it. But I'm amazed at how much medication takes as excessive amounts of Tylenol. And what people don't realize is that Tylenol in large doses taken regularly can have an adverse effect on the liver. It can do that. So I take a pain medication, and it's hydrocodone, but I always ask for the pill with the 325 Tylenol instead of the 500 because, and I think it's called Norco or something like that. But I think that if nothing else that people walked away from yours and my show today, if they realize that they need to be better informed about what they're taking and why they're taking it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the most frequently asked questions. We're going to talk about stuff here. We talked about the difference between mail order and online pharmacy, but why is it so important for people to know the difference? I think you hit on it a little bit, but it's extremely important to know the difference, right?
Yes,
Why?
absolutely. Yes, well, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about as far as verification. Because on the other end of a website, you don't know who you're dealing with. It could be literally anyone sending a package.
Okay.
Whereas, deal with us, we can show you the documentation. We can put you on the phone with our licensed pharmacists. And here's the thing, again, like I said, I don't want to make it sound like every website out there is a scam. I don't want to make it sound like that. I just want to emphasize the fact that if you're going to go online, if you're going to choose that route, please make sure you know who you're dealing with.
You have to.
You have to.
You have to know. A question that I know one of the most frequently asked questions I remember from our previous discussion was, where do the majority of your medications come from? What, they come from the U.S., or the U.S. produced drugs, or they come from all over the world?
Come from all over the world.
How, let's say if you got cost on one side and you got effectiveness of the drug at the same time, how do your pharmacists determine some of the products that you'll offer or won't offer? Is that a good question or not? Absolutely.
Absolutely. It's a perfectly legitimate question, and it's something that we often get asked. Because the fact is that there's a disconnect. I won't say misinformation, just kind of a hole, if you would, as far as the information that's given. The assumption is that American drug companies make American drugs here in America. And that if you live in another country, you have a drug company who makes drugs for you in your country. Well, that's not true. American drug companies number amongst the best in the world. And they sell the best drugs in the world to the world. Well, it only makes sense that they have factories all over the planet. Make sense?
So our drug companies in the United States have drug-producing countries in Europe?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yes.
So if you bought that drug from a company that produces in Europe, could you get it cheaper from them than you get it from the company in the U.S.?
Yes.
The light starts to go a little brighter. Shopping
Yes.
makes a big difference.
Absolutely. Yes. And knowing that you have that option is what makes all the difference in the world.
Are you have any success stories about somebody that you've worked with? Something that would let a viewer understand more about what Canadian Meds does?
They're all a success story, but I'll give you a perfect example.
Okay.
There's a young lady who takes two different medications. Because of her tolerance, she can only take the brand name products.
Okay.
So she's not receiving any kind of generic products. However, compared to the big box stores, she is saving $600 every 2 months. That translates into $300 every single month.
$3,600 a year.
Yeah.
And that has something to do with the donut hole too.
Yeah. So if you sit back and you think about $3,600 over the course of a year that this young lady is saving, she's on a fixed income, she's a grandmother.
Okay.
What would you do with an extra $3,600 in your pocket? You know, this is not a store rebate. This is not a coupon. This is cash money. This is money that is in her account because she's saving money on 2 medications. It's a change in the quality of life.
Everything we do affects our pocketbook, Joe. I notice in one drug I take, I have seen it now in 3 different colors and 3 different shapes. And what is the significance of the different shapes and colors for the same darn drug? Why is that?
layman's opinion,
Yeah.
it has to do with marketing and the reasonable sale in the marketplace. You know, we live in a very fast-paced, marketing-based country, and that we live in basically the only country in the world where drug companies can actually market to the individual. And that's saying something. The fact that drug companies here can put a commercial on TV and tell us as individuals to go see our doctor about a drug. It doesn't happen anywhere else in the world.
Doesn't happen anywhere else?
Mm-hmm. No, it doesn't happen anywhere else in the world. So the color and changes, and the thing is the difference, like we were talking about between the brand name and the generic product for the exact same pill. Well, drug companies are competing, and they have to be able to change that size, shape, and color because of patents. And unfortunately, patents here in the United States last longer than they do anywhere else.
That's a good point. We made that point. You know, we're almost out of time, and before I run out of time, you know, you've made some significant points today, but if a person is interested in Canadian meds, and I think it's just a fair answer for you to give, how can people contact you, and what is a quick overview of how they can order drugs through Canadian Meds?
Well, we have a very simple 3-step process. We have a short form. It's called the medical profile form. I can send it to you either by email. If you're anywhere close in driving distance, I'll drop it by your house. I can send it to you by mail. We just need that form to make sure we get all the pertinent information and get it to the pharmacist, so that way we can make sure that all your information, there's no contraindications. We can make sure that the medicine that you're taking is not going to cause you any harm, that sort of thing.
But that form, what that form does is you ask if people put all their medications on it, and then you can price them, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's the point there.
Yeah, we can price them, and what we can also do is check to make sure that they're not taking anything that is harmful, whether they purchase them from us or not.
That's what your pharmacist do.
That's what the pharmacist does, exactly.
So your pharmacy service does the same thing that the Walgreens and CVS pharmacy services does. You check the medications.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, I want to make sure people know how to contact you.
Yes, it's area code 321-574-6976.
And I want to thank you, viewer, for watching today's episode of Helping Seniors. If you have questions or comments, please call us at 321-473-7770. For more information on senior care and resources, visit our website at helpingseniorsofbrevard.org. Be sure to listen to Helping Seniors on radio station AM 1300 WMEL every Thursday afternoon at 1 p.m. and look for our Helping Seniors newsletter in the center section of Senior Scene magazine each month. I'm Joe Steckler, and thanks for joining us today for Helping Seniors.